I collect bad advice. It's a hobby. Like this piece of bad advice. Trust the process. Oh, okay, if you say so. I feel like we're headed off of a cliff, but I guess I'll just trust the process and hope we don't go up in flames. Or this piece of bad advice, which is often shared with a person who's gotten royally screwed over and is justifiably bitter and pissed off. Bad advice. Let it go. Let it go. It's as if telling someone those 3 words will somehow evoke a cathartic release from the depths of our psyche. Then again, let it go is actually brilliant advice. You should learn how to let things go. Otherwise, the past eats you up inside and colors how you see your current reality. You walk around with a chip on your shoulder, always waiting for the next shoe to drop. But it's bad advice because if only it were that easy. In business, as in life, dirtbags screw us over. A colleague drops the ball and doesn't seem to care that you've been left to put out the flames of the dumpster fire he created. Or maybe you made a mistake, a big mistake, and have carried that regret ever since. Just let it go, right? I know, easier said than done. But how can you afford to keep holding on to what happened? What you hold on to holds on to you. It weighs you down, keeps you small. Wouldn't you rather let it go so you can move on? Join me as we learn how to let go from a death doula on this episode of The Business of Being. This is The Business of Being, a podcast about the intersection of life and business, how the inner work of being prepares us for the outer work of doing and succeeding. I'm your host, Stephen Megling. My guest today is Stephen Jenkins. Stephen is an end-of-life care expert who helps his clients and their families with the ultimate journey of letting go. In our discussion, I asked Stephen how we can reconcile our disappointment, sadness, and fear so we can let go and move on. And stick around after the discussion. I want to share what a 5-star waiter taught me about a red balloon and the art of letting go. Well, Stephen, welcome.
Thank you, Stephen. I feel like I'm talking to myself, only a better, good-looking version of myself.
And I feel like I'm talking to a better-looking version of myself and a better-sounding version of myself.
Well, thank you. It's an honor and a privilege. It always is to be anywhere but here.
Yeah. It's probably a good segue to our conversation and specifically your role. So I wanted to talk to you in particular and have a conversation about letting go because you are a death doula. You are an end-of-life care expert and you work with clients and their families on the ultimate journey of letting go.
Yeah.
And so our audience, our listeners are people who are working on their thing, their business thing, their idea, they're creating. And over again, we keep running into regret. We run into roadblocks that become dead ends. So I wanted to check in with you about how to think about letting go. And you said something as we were getting started that really took me back, and maybe we can start there.
Please.
You said all of life is letting go. Tell me more.
I firmly believe for every yes, there's a no. So as we choose, when you choose your major, you're saying no to the other majors. As you choose your life partner, you're saying no to the others. So whether you know it or not, you're letting go as we move through life. What I love, and you helped me, you just gave me this, I work in death and I work in real death. I work in not real death because I think death has on different levels. Death can be physical death. It can be a death of a dream. It could be a death of an opportunity. So when do we know to let something die? And when do we try to keep it alive? Way past. And we can do that both with people. We can do that in businesses. I think it's often because we think death is an end and death is a doorway. And specifically, we were talking about business. I was thinking of Elon Musk, Steve Jobs. I mean, you cannot find someone who's at the top of the food chain that if you sat down with them would not tell you they had many deaths. Whether those were relationships, whether they were businesses, everybody failed before they're achieved. But what was wonderful was out of that death, they rose and they learned. Sort of like the Terminator, where you just come back, or a Groundhog Day. So death is necessary. I mean, if you live in America or you live in the western, the upper northern part of America, or northeast, or wherever, every winter, everything dies. And that's very good because there's a rebirth. So as a business owner, when a concept is no longer on life's, what the problem is, sometimes we get too attached emotionally and we've put who we are. So the death of your business becomes the death of you.
Yes.
The death of this project, our egos can really get in the way. And it's sort of like not letting one grandma go off into the, because she's 98, she's lived, and she's like, please I've had a client tell me that. I had a client, Gus David, I loved Gus dearly, and Gus wanted to live to be 95. Oh, he actually wanted to live to 100. He lived to be 95. And he was doing well for a 95-year-old man until he slipped and broke his hip, which it wasn't planning on breaking it, and you're going to have things happen in your business life that you didn't plan on. But at that point, it became very painful, both for him and those people around him. Now, the bad thing with a hip is, first thing they do is they drag you into the hospital and they do surgery. It has to be done in 24 hours. It's a very painful thing, I'd imagine, for a 40-year-old, but for a 95-year-old. And when he came out, I was one of the closest people to him. He looked me in the eye and he said, let me go. I mean, that was such clarity. And I said, Gus, we had an arrangement. You were staying there. He says I was wrong. Now, shortly thereafter, but when I joke about that because he came to the realization, okay, the plan was to go there. But I think I should be open to ending this here. And not long after that, he had a peaceful transition. But often we keep projects, jobs, people. There's a lot of thing that lives past his death, sort of like a weekend at Bernie's. It looks alive, but, even when things die, like you should be able to say, that's dead. And often other people are like, when something's dead, it starts smelling.
Yes. And for better or worse, I don't think a lot of us are able to detect the smell of this thing in my life is rotting.
I love that, Stephen.
Right? It's like, I wish I could get that nose to say, I feel it. But then, as you know, as a human being, we have these feelings, and then we wonder, are these the right feelings? And you talked a few minutes ago, and you said it, and it was so thoughtful, and then we moved on, but I want to come back to it, that for every yes, there is a no. And I'm not sure we think like that.
I like that. I can't be good at everything. I'm here for one thing. I mean, we talk this all the time, Stephen. We talk about purpose and destiny and being on point. And I know, the older I get, the more I know the things I'm not good at, and I outsource them. I sort of bring those people around me. But that's where the drive comes from, knowing why you're here. What's the mark? I also love starting with the end in mind. Reverse engineer it. How do I want to be remembered? As the busy guy who just worked on stuff? The guy who had his hand in everything? What's going to be your singular tagline? How are people going to remember you? I think sometimes that should be incorporated earlier on and not wait to the end. People are often concerned about their legacy at the end when your legacy should be built in the beginning.
Yeah.
you're not a producer, you're a person. You're not a producer. So often it's like, I have to do that thing that's going to make people remember me. See, when you become the thing, you stop living. You're a person. And let's be clear, you're an imperfect person. But choosing what to say no to is equally as important as what you put yourself to.
Yeah, and I think that is often one of the most difficult inflection points that we face in our lives, in our business lives, is I'm saying yes to this, which means I must say no to something else. And I think we want to have our cake and eat it too.
And you're fat. With diabetes.
Yes, and the physical manifestation of that in business is you're stressed.
Well, you're one of the most disciplined people I know, but you know your limits. You have a roadmap. You have some things that you want to hit. You have a list. And if you want to see the sunrise in the morning, then maybe you don't stay up to see those guys who aren't really funny at night. If you want to look good in your clothing, then maybe you take a second look at what's put in front of you to eat. So you're making those trade-offs and those decisions all the time. You know, if you specialize in your field to the point of being an expert, you have to give a lot of your life to that. There's a lot of things that you have to say no to. Friends, outings, travel. Yeah, you may be at the top of your field, but when life goes on, there may not be a lot of relationships and stuff around because you've sacrificed that. And yet, if you want to have a meaningful life that has children and success and other things in it, then maybe you're not the top guy. I mean, I love that saying. I've never really, the guy with the most toys at the end wins. He wins what? He dies. I'm like, is that a prize? I mean, I thought that's what everybody was trying to avoid. Here's a winner. What do I get? You get death. I mean, we live for that. And everybody's racing that way. And I often say to myself, someone wants to stand up. And I think Steve Jobs, I think if you could interview some of these people at the end of their lives, and I've spoken to them, they'd say, it wasn't worth it. Slow down. Smell the roses. Spend time with your family. One of the things I hear so often from people at the end is, it went so fast. It was a blink. 80 years seems like yesterday. I remember playing in the playground. I remember my mom. Those things. So yeah, I think that what do you want to be known for? The impact you want to make on the people in your life. And no is good. I think we're in a good season of no. I mean, like the 2 years old. No. Sit down. No. You know, we should embrace the inner child who wants to say no.
Because in order to say yes, you have to say no, and saying no is another form of letting go. Letting go of that opportunity or that event, or thank you, by the way, a few minutes ago, you complimented me, and it's clear that I've done a good job of pretending to be very disciplined, so I fooled you. Ha. But, you know, we had a marvelous birthday dinner in your honor a week ago, and it was such a magical night. And at 9 o'clock, I was having the time of my life, and I said, no, I got to go home and get some sleep because I have a curfew. And so it is a process. It's a constant unfolding. And I want to tee something up that I think is important to our amazing listeners. A special type of letting go that I think plagues us all, which is letting go of regrets. Walk us through that.
And I have a PhD in regret. And you know what? I just want to say, Stephen, thank you for that. I love that, because if you have accomplished anything, you have regrets. The only people who don't have regrets are the ones that sat around and did nothing. And they will regret that.
Well said.
No, because if you attempt to love, you attempt to build. I mean, the greatest thing you can do is to love and create. Come on. To love and create. You know what? I just heard God. Love and create. To love and to create. To love another broken human being and to create something out of nothing. And people who do that, they're fearless. We wouldn't be talking on these microphones. I wouldn't have that iPhone here, and I wouldn't be driving that car if there were not fearless people who loved what they did and were creative and gave themselves to it. So we can thank ourselves for those people.
And if I may add, those are people who made and designed phones and vehicles and microphones who had regrets. And so how do we process that? I think we all have these regrets.
So you did what you did with what you knew at the time.
Mm.
Life doesn't come with an instruction book. Though I do love everything I needed to learn, I learned in kindergarten. I think there's a lot to be said with that. And the other one is that all you need to know about life is you learn on a farm. But with regrets, you have been harmed and you have harmed people. And I think it's important to let it go. To let go that you are a human doing what you knew, what you thought, and that those people who harmed you, or, I think the worst kind of regret is a regret that we feel may have impacted people. So I let people go, not for the sake of the person, but for me. I need to free myself. And I understand that we're characters in a novel. And it's often that we choose the roles that we want to play in these. So whether you are the villain or the victim, understand that you had something to do with that. Whether it was conscious or unconscious, there's an unconscious of that. But at the end of the game, all the toys go back in the box. And I think that regrets need to be set free. And whether that's writing them and burning them, whether that's writing them and letting them go. They say if you are still dealing with something that happened more than 14 months ago, then that's an unresolved issue.
Mm.
So if you ask your conscience, there's a record of everything in there, okay? If you ask your conscience, those things that plague you, whether it's a family relationship, whether it's a work environment relationship, and this still, help me. There's someone inside of you who wants to help you, who really likes you often better than you like yourself, and say, how do I let this go? How do I let this go? What do I need to let go? Now, you have to be listening for the answers. And in this society we live in now, there's a lot of noise. I tell you, so much stuff would rise to the top if we would just get quiet. I think it was Blaise Pascal who said that all of man's troubles inherently come from his inability to sit alone with himself in quiet. Like we just did.
I know. I was like, who's going to break the silence? I'm not going to break it.
So why is it that we go through our closet often and decide what needs to go? We look in the cupboard and see what needs to go. Hopefully you look in the refrigerator and check the dates on the food and see what needs to go. Why don't you do an internal check and see what you need to let go? What needs to die? Dig yourself a great big hole out in the backyard. And in my case, get yourself a nice bourbon and have a funeral. Bury the past. Bury the regrets. You'll feel better. It'll lighten the load. And you know what? You'll have so much energy for the journey ahead. We wipe our computers when the software get full. Mm-hmm. And you don't get to 35 and 40, especially in this world that we live in now, and not be full. And be easy on yourself. Who told you were Superman? You're not. You're just a human, but you're amazingly creative. You're one of a kind. There's 9 billion of you, but you're one of a kind. And you have the capacity for amazing good. Take care of yourself. Do a reboot. Someone once said, everything works better if you'll shut it off for a little while.
I would add to that, as you were talking about letting go and burying, and 2 things occurred to me. One is most of us have some version of a habit of every season going into the closet and moving out the wardrobe. Here is spring and summer and fall. And then hopefully many of us will say, do I really need this thing? Have I worn this in however long? Now, for you listeners, you should know that both Stephen and I love clothes, so.
We're naked now, though. You didn't tell them this was the Naked Podcast.
It's all audio. It's all theater of the mind. So we let go of clothes. And what you said a moment ago is about letting go of thoughts that no longer serve you, things that you said or did that most likely hurt somebody. That to me is always my red flag. My mind loves to go back in time. Not for the stupid things that I did where nobody was around, but the stupid things that I said and did to other people. And recently, Stephen, I had a thought that has been like a comet, comes around every so often. And it was something that I said to somebody in college that I look back and I thought, what a stupid thing to say. And when the thought came back like a comet, it has a little cycle. And this was a few weeks ago. To your point about silence and stillness, I just sat with the thought, the memory. And I thought, do I need to remember this anymore? Like, is there anything left? I think I've cleaned the meat off of this bone. And can I just let it go?
Often what I do, and I have done personally, is that and I love the college one. I mean, because we've all said stuff, inebriated. And I think that the knowledge that one has hurt other people, please, don't ever you lose that. This would be a worst world if people could harm other people in any way and not feel it. So the idea that I realized that I said something that might have hurt somebody, what I often understand is the sooner that I do it, the sooner I try to correct it. So I'm a better person today. If I feel like I said something last week or last month and the person doesn't even have to say anything. If I'm uncomfortable with it, go clean that up. Mm-hmm. But if it's been so long ago, and we've all said stuff like that, I pray a prayer for the person. I send them love and forgiveness. So when those circle around and they come back, I hope that there's no one who's sitting in a bitter corner with a drink saying that's Stephen Jenkins. Mm-hmm. I wish that person well. And I actually wish, and this has been very freeing for me, I wish the people who've harmed me well, that they have found some peace because I have found peace. So if they're alive and the opportunity prevails itself, then maybe there's a note or a text that. But I let people go, and I want people to let me go. I'm sorry. I'm sorry is just so powerful. The 4 things that must be said before someone dies. And if we said this to each other, whether it's your wife, your child, your business partner, which is, please forgive me. I forgive you. Thank you. And I love you. Mm. Those 4 statements have the power to not only free yourself, but to free those that were harmed. Now, the problem with me saying, please forgive me, I forgive you, thank you, and I love you, is that I cannot demand that you receive them. Mm. But I've put them out there. Yeah. And if there was ever a time in the history of humankind that we all needed to put some good stuff out there, I think it's now. And let's be clear, you have the power. I might not be able to change things in Africa, but I can change things in my area of influence. So years ago, it was pay it forward. Let's shed some love. Let's put some good stuff out there. And I'm telling you, the old butterfly wing thing, we'll have a hurricane of love and empathy and all of that good stuff. And maybe we can clear out some of this negative chi.
Well, with that, I want to move to the closure of our discussion, and I just want to quickly acknowledge something that you said, because it's important, I think, for me and hopefully our listeners out there, that letting go often requires a physical action of saying, I'm sorry, forgive me. And then it also requires the interaction of saying the same thing to ourselves and allowing that to go, that pain.
Stephen, I'd actually say that the forgiving of self is harder than forgiving of others, because you'll say things to yourself that you'd never say to a stranger. We can be very hard on ourselves.
Yeah.
Words that I don't like to hear is always, shoulda, coulda. Stop shoulda-ing all over yourself. It doesn't look pretty. Whether you use those words with yourself or with others, they handcuff you. They don't allow you to move on. And if we had a time machine, we could all go back and erase and do things differently. There's no rewind on this thing. So what I have to do, and you can erase those or correct those by being a better person. Live against who you were. As long as you're moving in the right direction, come on. You could be crawling. Just be a better person. I'm in competition with one person, and it's the me who was last week. It was the me of yesterday. I want to be more loving, more giving, more patient, more kind. And I can do that. I can do that. And at my last breath, I'll still be working at it. But be kind to yourself and recognize you are not who you were. Certainly not who people said you were. And one step in the right direction, 2 steps in the right direction. You know, it's amazing. I'm so grateful that we don't have these masks on anymore right now. But the power of a smile to someone, it's a nonverbal. People's eyes light up. And it has a physical effect, because endorphins and things are created inside you that have the ability to affect mood and sleep. And I mean, that's a powerful sort of pat on the back to look someone in the eyes and smile. What I'm saying is, I see you.
Yeah. As we wrap here, I just want to say one more thing, and then one thing to you directly, which is when you talk about the power of a smile, I think so many of us find it hard to do that because we're holding on to thoughts. We're holding on to things that are making us clench our teeth. Or in my case, being a relatively shy person, I'm holding on to the idea that if I smile and the person doesn't smile back, what does this mean to me? And I need to let that go, right? So as we wrap here, Stephen, I just want to honor you, because I've had the privilege of being your friend for many years. And the words that you've shared today are so healing and so helpful. And I've known you as a human moving through this world, and your actions are so beautifully aligned with your words. You are the living embodiment of everything that you shared today. So I just want to honor you with that.
You're going to make me cry. Good thing they can't see in here, Stephen. But you are my brother. I mean, if they could see us, we're like almost twins. So you coming into my life, see, that's the gift of the universe. And see, in order for me to welcome you, I had to let things go.
Yeah.
So when you let things go and let them die, you have no idea what things you're making room for. The universe has good things for you. Stephen, your friendship is a gift. You're talented, you're wonderful, your insight. No, you're not perfect, and there's no wings in this room. But getting to know you, and getting to know you allows me to get to know myself, because iron sharpens iron, and you've helped me become a better person. You're a guide, you're a giver, it's what you do. And I so value and appreciate you. And I thank you for the opportunity. You're thoughtful. But yeah, I ditto everything that you just said. It's like looking in the mirror. I told somebody last week, we're born with our eyes facing backwards. So we don't see this in ourselves. We need people to vision us, to reflect back to us the goodness that we have, because like does attract. And you're a game changer, and you're just getting started. And knowing you helps me aspire to grow. And I thank you for sharing. I thank you for what you're putting out there with this podcast, Stephen. I mean, you could think these thoughts and be at home, but you're not. You're sharing them. Why? Because these are going to help other people.
Yeah. Thank you.
You're loved, buddy. You are. and you're quite musical, too. You're one damn good drummer.
Oh, well, that's for another podcast. Talk soon, Stephen.
All right. Thank you, Stephen.
All right. I love people who are walking sound bites, and Stephen is a walking sound bite. Case in point when he said, all of life is letting go. Yes, it is, isn't it? Saying yes to something means saying no and letting go to something else. And this gem from Stephen, how you let go defines you. Isn't that so true? Don't you know people who just can't let things go, and it defines them? Bruce sure knows how to hold on to a grudge, doesn't he? Or don't you just love Debbie? Except when it comes to insert topic and she's a broken record. Debbie just can't let it go. But occasionally you meet the opposite kind of person, someone gifted at letting go, and you envy them. I know I do, because they're free inside. There's a peace to letting go. In the mindfulness tradition, we would call it a sense of equanimity. You might wonder if you possess the inner strength to overcome the impulse to hold on to justifiable anger and resentment. I know I do. But here's the thing. If you want to get good at letting go of the big stuff in life, then get good at letting go of the small stuff. The annoying client who doesn't seem to care that you have a life outside of work. The frustrating colleague who doesn't read the memo before the meeting. The business deal that goes south. Life presents us with everyday opportunities to either hold on or let go. And here's a way to get good at letting go of the small stuff in your business life. It's all about a red balloon. I learned the red balloon technique from the most incredible waiter I've ever experienced. It was years ago at a restaurant in the Florida Keys, off the beaten path, next door to a grove of banyan trees. The restaurant sign was barely visible from the road because the place was so legendary, they didn't need marketing. I was sitting on the deck overlooking the bay, moonlight rippling on the water. The waiter comes to our table to take the order. He's relaxed, at ease, not pretentious, big smile. We ordered drinks and apps, entrees, and my guest, she probably changed her mind 3 times on what she wanted, asked for substitutions, a real complicated order. Here's the thing. The waiter doesn't write down a word. Nothing. And I think to myself, oh, this is not going to end well. The food's going to come out wrong. The drinks are going to come out wrong. I start awfulizing. The thing is, though, he remembered everything. It was perfect. It was poetry. Even down to our first names, which he repeated when he thanked us after dropping off the bill. Now, I tipped the waiter well, of course, but I also wanted to pay him a compliment. I told him he was marvelous, and I asked how he was so fully present with us tonight and all of his tables. I thought the waiter would say that he actually was a Buddhist monk or something, just in the off-season from the monastery. Instead, he told me a story about the red balloon. Turns out, early in his career at the restaurant, the waiter had a rowdy table. Sales guys in from out of town. Big golf outing earlier that day, lots of day drinking, and they come to the restaurant. Basically, it seemed like to make his life hell. They were loud and demanding. Nothing he did was right, and it really rattled him. The restaurant owner noticed this and pulled the waiter aside. The owner told the waiter, "Imagine a red balloon with a string every time you leave the table. See your fingers holding the string, then release the red balloon into the air, letting it go. The waiter told me that now whenever he leaves a guest's table, he imagines the red balloon, his fingers on the string, and he lets the red balloon go. In other words, what's done is done, good and bad. That way he can be present at the next table with the next guests. The red balloon helps to remind that waiter not to hold on to things, to let things go. Better yet, I think, the red balloon reminds that waiter that he has the power, the agency, to let things go. Think about everything that happens to you on any average day at work. All the minor infractions, the annoying emails, the setbacks, frustrations, and disappointments. They add up, don't they? So what are you carrying with you? Are you bringing negative energy into the next meeting, the next project, the next team check-in? Or are you letting it go? Because when we learn to let go, we're free. We take that weight off of our shoulders so we can be fully present, like that amazing waiter in Florida. So let me ask you, what have you been holding on to that it's time to let go? This week, I want you to try that red balloon visualization. Suppose you have to send a tough email. After you send the email, imagine the red balloon, the string, and your fingers letting that red balloon go. After coming out of a meeting that may have rattled you when somebody perhaps said something that got under your skin, imagine the red balloon and let the meeting go. When someone says something or does something to you that you don't like, certainly deal with it as necessary. But after you deal with it, imagine the red balloon and let it go. Before you shut down your computer for the day, see the red balloon in your mind's eye and let the day go. You'll feel freer. You'll feel clearer. Remember, we carry our days around inside of us. Good moments are wonderful to hold on to, but the negative moments and the negative people, let it go. Let it go. Why be a sponge for negativity? Why bring negative energy from one incident to your other meetings and encounters throughout the day? Be more like that incredible waiter in Florida. Step away from the table. Imagine the red balloon, your fingers on the string, and let it go. The Business of Being is a production of Band of Misfits, your business life mentors. Come say hello at welcomemisfit.com. And while you're there, grab your copy of Misfit Mail, microdoses of inspiration and insights to help you navigate your business life journey.
The show's executive producer is me, Sir Isaac Smith. We want this show to help as many people as possible on their business life journey. Would you help spread the word? Share this episode with a friend on social media, and please leave us a review. Every little bit helps.
Absolutely. And so, Sir Isaac, I wanted to ask you, is there a quote that you've been reflecting on recently that we ought to know about?
Yes, and by someone that you probably don't know. So I had a mentor starting out in production. One of my first clients, he became one of my mentors. And he would tell me that one of the best answers you can give to someone is, I can do it. Even if you doubt yourself, even if you aren't entirely sure what the process is, because what that will do in your life, as far as the work you put in, as far as your confidence, it will reap dividends. He told me to put it on a sign and put it above my doorway. Haven't done that yet, don't tell him, but just to give him credit, Neil Goldstein, very, very good man.
I can do it. I can do it. I can do it. I love it. Well, take us home, Sir Isaac.
For show notes, links, and behind-the-scenes shenanigans, visit welcomemisfit.com and click podcast. Until then, don't fit in, stand out.